Okay, so this is the Fairfield Economic Development Commission meeting of January 7th, 2021. It is now 8:33 a.m. For the record, this is Mark Barnhart, Director of Community Economic Development for the town of Fairfield. We have on the line as well Chairman Kevin Lesko, Commissioners Don Peterson, Elise Fatherly. We also have Greg Minsky and Steve Rosado on the line. We also have Beverly Ballas from the Fairfield Chamber of Commerce, Gretchen Gertner, our recording secretary, and our guest speaker today, Daphne Dixon from Live Green, Connecticut. Is there anyone else that's joined the call that would like to introduce themselves at this time?
Hi, Mark. This is Rishi Narang.
Hi, Rishi. How are you? Okay, so we have a full house.
Doing well, thanks.
I think the only one not here is John Slavin, who indicated he wasn't able to join this morning. So I suggest everyone, if you're not speaking, you may want to put your phones on mute just to avoid any background noise or interference. That sometimes does happen. But I think first order of business is the approval of minutes from our last meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for taking the time this morning, and welcome everyone and those guests as well. And if we can have a approval of the minutes, if I could ask someone to call a motion for that.
So moved. This is Don Peterson.
Excellent. And a second.
This is Greg Minsky, second.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Okay. Very good. Okay. All right. I think we have a approval of the minutes, and moving forward, Mark, would you like to continue?
Sure. Today we have with us Daphne Dixon from Live Green, Connecticut. I believe about this time last year we were finishing up the municipal EV readiness study with grant assistance from United Illuminating Company, and Daphne had worked with UI in the town to perform that work, and I believe she wanted to provide a quick update as they've been making progress in terms of rollout of that program and getting other communities to sign on, and she's also looking to further the work if there's some interest from the commission on and working with her and her team on this effort. So Daphne, I'll let you take it from there.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mark, for letting me join you all this morning. I really appreciate being here. So I'm Daphne Dixon. I'm Executive Director of Live Green, Connecticut. And as Mark said, we conducted a Fairfield Municipal EV Readiness Study, and we gave you the results last year. I can't believe it's been a year. I did want to let everybody know that the state of Connecticut has enacted statutes that requires an 80% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions below the 2001 levels by 2050, with an interim target of 45% below 2001 levels by 2030. Transportation accounts for 38% of Connecticut's greenhouse gas emissions and is a major contributor to our global climate crisis, from the use of fossil fuels in passenger cars, medium and heavy duty trucks and buses. In order to reach Connecticut's goals, transportation will need to become zero emission. The state has committed to striving to make all new vehicles zero emission vehicles by 2050, with an interim goal of 30% by 2030 for new, medium and heavy duty vehicles, and 125,000 light-duty passenger vehicles by 2025. The state currently has about 12,000 light-duty electric vehicles, and we need to get to 125,000 in 4 years. Furthermore, utilities will be affected by wide-scale adoption of EVs in a variety of ways that can be proactive and assist municipalities to meet the demands in an efficient manner. So I came to the commission last year, and I provided the results and provided the study, the Fairfield study that we did. I'm just wondering if any of you actually read the study. Mm-hmm. And that's fine if you haven't. I'm just asking, just wanting to bring this back to life. So, as you may or may not recall,
I think
Yeah.
what I'll do is I should have done this before the meeting, but as a follow-up to this, I'll make sure that everyone has a link to the EV Readiness study so they can refresh their memory because It's been a while. So.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
The biggest outcome of the study really was that, we really need a team in Fairfield to address this. And so my request to the commission was is there somebody on the commission who would like to help be a part of an overall team to really look at EV readiness. Just a little more information. I don't want to take too long. I know you've got a lot of other things on your agenda, but we did go ahead and we did a Hamden EV readiness study as well. We worked with Hamden in the same way we worked with Fairfield, and we did that study last year, and we concluded it up a couple months ago. And really, we discovered the same thing, that the most, it's this interactive element that's really going to move the needle. And so what we started to do was we started to create a municipal EV readiness toolkit program. And that program was a 12-week program that we actually did. It started in September, went from September 17th through December 17th. And it was really based on the modules and all the information that we got from doing the Hamden study and the Fairfield study. So we had these 12 modules. We had, how to build a team, a municipal EV readiness team. We had an electric school bus module, municipal fleet, parking and enforcement. And we actually had Chief Liddy from Fairfield. He was our guest speaker because Fairfield, I believe, is the first town in the state to actually enforce parking enforcement with charging infrastructure. So if there's a parking space that is meant for an electric vehicle and a regular vehicle is parked in there, they can get a ticket now. So that level of enforcement was spearheaded actually from the study. We talked to Chief Liddy when we were doing the Fairfield EV readiness study, and we were talking about all these things. And I said, what can you do to support EV readiness? He's like, well, we can enforce it. So they actually went ahead and did that. The Parking Commission put that into play, and we are the first town in Connecticut to actually enforce it. So I thought that was pretty cool. We had a module on zoning, one on building and permitting, one on public and destination charging, multi-unit dwelling charging, workplace charging, transit fleets, shuttle buses, and first responders. So it was a very comprehensive program. We actually had over 200 participants come through the program, and those participants represented over 60 municipalities. We had 60 municipalities in this toolkit. So everybody who went through a module and completed the homework actually got a certificate of completion. Some towns just picked and chose which modules they came through, but there were 10 towns that actually went through every single module and got a certificate of completion for each module, and Fairfield was one of those towns. So we had community volunteers that went through each module. They completed the homework. They did a lot of outreach, I know, to Mark and to all the different departments. They completed all the homework. And for their efforts, the town of Fairfield actually received a certificate of distinction, which can be then turned into Sustainable Connecticut for points. I think it's 15 points that potentially, we can get for that effort. So what we're up to next is we are up to doing a municipal EV readiness program for 2021. It's starting in March and it's going through November. We're actually doing a webinar next Wednesday with Connecticut Conference of Municipalities to showcase this program we're going to be doing. And we really hope that we can build a team in Fairfield to help work on this. I was really inspired and excited by the Hamden group. They actually have 17 people who are participating on their EV team, and it's mostly it's mostly municipal employees. It's some community members, it's some commission members, but they really are committed to this EV readiness thing. And it's important for economic and community development. We really need to make sure our towns are addressing a lot of these issues with public and destination charging, with the multi-unit dwelling, charging. There's a lot of issues that I think are important to economic and community development. So I will send you,
Daphne,
Mark, yes.
Can I just ask you who else is on Fairfield's teams, or at least can you tell the commission who else is on Fairfield's EV readiness team at the moment?
It was mainly people from the task force.
Okay.
We had, so thank you, that's a good question. We did have, Emmeline did come to the zoning module. And then I said, yeah, of course, Chief Liddy was at the parking enforcement. But we didn't have a lot of engagement from the town. And I was a little disappointed because, so many of the other towns had a lot of engagement. Of the over 200 participants that did participate in our toolkit program, about half were municipal employees. Then there was community members and then state agencies. So I'm really hoping, I'm not quite sure what to do to engage more folks in Fairfield. Hampton has 17 and they went through the study, and we don't really have a lot of commitment. So I wanted to come back to the Economic and Community Development Commission because this is where the study began. And honestly, if it wasn't for the study that we did in Fairfield, I don't think we would have ever thought of developing the toolkit, because it really wasn't doing the study that we realized that what has to happen is there has to be this, we have to build this team of people who really, who really want to work on things.
Thank you,
Daphne. If I could ask,
Daphne. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yes, thank you. If I could ask, Daphne, what will be the metrics for deciding how effective these different procedures would be for changing out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first let me say, I will send Mark, and he can send it out to you all. I will send you the report that we did for the toolkit that shows you what the toolkit was and the different modules and the action tasks. And so how we rated it with the toolkit was that every module had an action that people needed to complete. But it was, you can't do EV readiness in 3 months. You really need to have a container, and you really need, several months to really get on top of it. So what we plan on doing for the program, to answer your question, is to go through these different modules. And, the thing is, every town is really different. So the goal is to present options that towns can kind of choose from. So, for them to look at their town, to see, what they want to do, and for the town, the people, who participate in the town to choose their goals and what their plan needs to be, and then work towards that, along with other communities over a 9-month period. Because what we found is, what one town wants to do, another town doesn't want to do. So like parking enforcement, a lot of towns don't even have they don't even have any charging infrastructure. So like for them, enforcement is like the cart before the horse. So every town really has, their own path. But that being said, if we do it together with, several dozen towns, everybody can kind of learn from each other and see where they are. Some towns are ahead of Fairfield in other areas, like in zoning. Some towns like Hartford and Middletown actually have created zoning regulations now that include having a number of chargers when they put in new buildings, for example. So, some towns are doing some pretty cool things.
So maybe I should have rephrased that. For the zero emissions, how how do we create a metric to have a true savings of emissions? It kind of, and I'm not that I'm a non-believer of say electric electric cars or vehicles, but when you're kind of adding all of the carbon emissions for developing these items, does that get added back into what they're trying to calculate? It just seems like when you're calculating, they take face value as opposed to total value. Is that calculated? Because what I really would, it would seem to me that if people really embraced it, they would take the time to do it, and to embrace it, they really have to have a belief and understanding of how effective this program can be. Without it, people are they're going to be a little lukewarm on it, and maybe that's what we're seeing right now.
Well, they're not lukewarm in other towns. Other towns are pretty much, and some towns, aren't as interested. To answer this is the only way I know how to answer your question. So, when it comes to like measuring, greenhouse emissions, that's something that DEEP does. They have all kinds of people who just do that kind of stuff. What we're really about here is Connecticut has goals that they need to reach, that we need to reach by 2030. And those goals are 30% new medium and heavy duty trucks and buses need to be electric by 2030. 30% of new trucks and buses need to be electric by 2030. That's like we've signed on to these MOUs with multiple states. So we're committed to that. Another goal is that we have 125,000 electric vehicles on the road in 4 years. Now, that's an agreement that's been in place since 2013. It's with the International ZEV Alliance. They've signed this agreement with other countries, with other states, and the goal is to have 125,000 EVs on the road in 4 years. So there's a lot of ways to measure all of these things. What our organization does is we're responding to these state goals that are real, that are multi-state, that many organizations, state agencies, and governments are working towards, which is this 30% medium and heavy duty buses, trucks by 2030 and the 125,000. So that's what we're measuring towards. So what are we doing here in Fairfield? Like how many EVs, do we have? We have a couple hundred. How many should we have? Well, a lot more than that. So we're measuring against that. As far as the greenhouse gas emissions for the state of Connecticut, that's something that DEEP measures. We all have our parts to play.
Hey, Daphne, it's Elise. I just have a question. Hi, Daphne. It's Elise. How are you doing?
Hi. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to slightly piggyback on what Kevin was asking. I think it sounds to me like the other towns may have some type of maybe marketing plan that can inspire the community engagement, or maybe that's something that would be helpful to you. If there's some type of marketing surrounding, you know what I mean, like something. So this is what we do. So this is how we do the outreach. Is we find people, we go to a town and we talk with their economic and community development department. We talk with their task force, and we just give them this information. These are the state goals. We have this program. Our partners are Green Bank, the utilities, CCM. We have all these partners. We're doing this program because we're trying to support the state goals. And then they put it out there, and some towns are interested and some towns are not. And perhaps Fairfield's just not interested, and that's fine too. I just want to be sure that when we launch the program in March, that we give Fairfield, an opportunity to participate. And if Fairfield doesn't want to, that's totally fine. I just want to be sure that everybody knows about the program, knows that, what's at stake, that we have these commitments. And, and if it's not anything that the commission's interested in, I totally respect that.
It sounds to me what really Daphne's looking for is to see whether or not the town would want to formally impanel more than it already has a readiness committee that would then develop an implementation program to advance the goals that were outlined in the readiness study. I think that's what and then as part of that team effort, developing a plan. These are the types of things that we need to do to reach the overarching goals. She was looking for whether or not there would be interest from the commission to be part of that group. So I can send out, again, I apologize, I probably should have sent out the readiness study so that people could refresh their memories on that. But I will do that after the meeting, and also what I gather, Daphne has a further report on the toolkit that was prepared, and then I can also provide some more information on the team itself that has kind of emerged here, although it's mainly volunteer-driven at the moment. But I think what we're looking for is to see whether or not there might be interest from a commission member to be part of that team effort. Is that accurate, Daphne?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm just wondering, is there anybody that is interested in EV readiness and being a part of a team that would help in this effort?
Mark, this is Don. What's the process for the town forming a task force or a commission or a committee, such as like the pedestrian and bike committee, that's sort of a formal entity, the same as the Economic Development Commission? Is that something the first selectwoman can do, or does that require RTM approval?
There's a couple of different ways that can be done. The simplest way is to have the Board of Selectmen or first selectwoman and panel a group to do it. But there are obviously the EDC, for example, is established by local ordinance through an ordinance passed by the RTM. That's really a standing committee. This sounds like it's more of a project-based working group, and so I think it's probably appropriate that that the Board of Selectmen or the first selectwoman might panel a group to take a further look at this. Although it's possible that this can be done internally amongst departments or groups in town that are interested in the topic. I do think if you're going to try to get resources and actually implement something, it's oftentimes important to get buy-in from elected leaders like the Board of Selectmen. So that might be a logical next step too, to work with her office to make sure that there's a group that has been tasked with this function.
I agree, Mark. I think maybe he should be kind of run up the flagpole a little bit. I can't help but think that there, as you said, there must be other groups that are already in position that are already doing things of similarity for a more green-oriented Fairfield. So,
there's the Sustainable Task Force. There's the task force, but I'm actually on the task force, and a lot of this EV stuff is something that I have. I'm trying to help support. So there is no other group, and there is no other committee that's really heading this. It's something we're trying to start.
Okay. So as Mark said, I think we'll have him begin by resending the reports that you have. Allow us an opportunity as individuals within the committee, the commission, to read the report, and we can make a decision and reach out to collectively either to Mark, to you, or to you with interest and continuing and helping for this program.
That's terrific. I really appreciate that. And when I send the report from the toolkit that we just completed, I'll also send the link to the webinar we're doing with CCM next Wednesday, and that's going to give more details on the program that we're going to do. So if anybody's interested in hearing about the program. And so, and another way of doing this too is, if setting up a whole commission or a whole formal, that might be kind of arduous and difficult. The first step is we're really just looking for those who would potentially want to participate in this program that we're doing. So I don't know. I mean, I think it'd be great if we had an official task force, but a first step really would just be to get people to participate in our program that's coming up starting in March. That might not be quite so overwhelming, and it's not. It really won't take that much time.
This is Steve Rosado. I just wonder if we could also any sort of guidance on like what consequences or penalties is probably the wrong word, but like if Connecticut doesn't meet these goals, and also possibly like upside on like what Fairfield would get, whether marketing or if it's just the right thing to do in participating and being a leader in this program. It would be helpful to have, sort of the pros and cons, like what we're working up against or working towards.
Okay. I can
in supporting this.
I'll definitely follow up with Daphne on that too and provide that information to the commission.
Excellent. Well, Daphne, thank you for coming today.
So much.
We appreciate your time and your effort.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate
Mark,
being here today.
Okay.
Thank you,
Mark,
Daphne. You're welcome
the next
to stay
item on the agenda?
Yeah, it will be the election of officers. I think we didn't do that the last at our meeting in December. We did set our meeting schedule for 2021, but I would be remiss if we don't formally elect a slate of officers. We just need a chair and a vice chair. I think currently, obviously you, Kevin, are able chairman. I think Don is serving as our vice chair, but I'll open the floor to any nominations.
Let me just state that I'm happy to stay on as chair. I'm also happy if someone would like to step forward as well, and I can be a chief or an Indian just the same. I believe in the commission, and I want to make sure that we do all we can for the town.
This is Don. I'd like to nominate Kevin to remain as chair.
I second that, Steve Rosado.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. How about for vice? Could I nominate Don for vice chair?
This is Don. I'm willing to stay on as vice chair.
I heard Greg. Is that correct? Greg,
I second Don's nomination.
Okay.
Okay. So all in favor to have Don stay on as?
Can we take them all together, vote for both motions simultaneously here?
That makes sense. Can a motion, a vote for myself to stay on, Kevin to stay on as chair, Don as vice chair. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for that vote of confidence. Mark, we've accomplished that, I believe.
Yes, we did.
Next on the agenda, Mark?
Well, let me see if I can call this up. Give me a minute here. But I'm trying to hopefully, for those of you who are able to see it, I have our year-end review that I wanted to share with you. I'm going to skip over the COVID response reopening plan because I think that's really incorporated in my comments with regard to the prior year. Hopefully this, can everyone see that those are actually on the screen?
I can.
Oh, good.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So for those who are just calling in, I think everyone's well aware of what our overarching mission is, which is to work to develop programs that help stimulate economic development in town. We have some other functions as relates to affordable housing and managing grants on behalf of the community to hopefully further the community itself. I think I included this slide last year, but really our competitive position is focused on the fact that we've got not only a highly educated workforce, but we have the benefit of having two outstanding private universities, which make us a great choice for businesses that need that kind of talent, as well as the access to both by rail and train through along the I-95 corridor. This past year was obviously dominated by COVID and our response to that. I know Beverly's on the call as well, and we spent a lot of time working with businesses to provide guidance on resources available to them to help them navigate the regulations and requirements that the state imposed so that businesses can safely reopen and operate during the pandemic. On our front, we did take a look at our permitting, put in place an expedited permitting process, especially as relates to restaurants with outdoor dining. And we approved 45 locations under that expedited permitting process, most of which were new, previously unapproved or unpermitted locations to allow businesses to provide that outdoor dining opportunity for the patrons. We did receive some assistance through the Community Development Block Grant, through the CARES Act, both a first initial tranche and then a second wave that came just recently. And with that, we launched a small business assistance grant program. And I think, again, most of our focus was on supporting the existing business base, certainly working with the Chamber, among others, on a buy local campaign. The Chamber launched a very successful Fairfield Community EGift card program, which we supported through our marketing efforts and other support. And so I think that's really been important to provide a lifeline to businesses and, again, focus the community on the importance of supporting the local business base. So in terms of the grants themselves, to date, we've received over 75 applications, and we've assisted 67 businesses, committed over $250,000 in funds. 54% of those businesses had received no other financial support from other governmental programs, which I think was part of the reason why we put in place this small grant program. 65% of those businesses were those that were either the owner of the business or their employees were persons of low moderate income, satisfying a national objective of our funding source. The average grant was a little over $3,500, and through this, we've retained 124 jobs thus far and counting, and then 14 jobs were created as a result of the small business grants that we provided to them. I covered this last year. I think it's important to kind of go through some of these existing conditions in terms of economic indicators. Obviously, we saw a spike in unemployment with the lockdowns and restrictions in terms of business operations in early first quarter of 2020. That has scaled down. The effect here in the local Fairfield market has been a little bit more muted. We typically have lower unemployment than does the labor market area, the state, or the nation as a whole, and that continues to be the case. But it is higher than where we were, just about a year ago. We did see a precipitous drop-off in commercial building activity. I think that was bound to happen regardless. If you look kind of at the overarching trend, you have some very robust years, and then you typically have a reset where you don't see quite as much commercial activity. But certainly the pandemic didn't help, and obviously for the first several months we were struggling to keep our operations virtually. Permitting was definitely affected through that, so we did see a drop off in commercial activity. This is some of the major projects that were approved last year, or this past year. Again, we have what we've seen in prior years is a lot of institutional university activities that tend to predominate in terms of larger projects, which don't necessarily, they provide building permit fees that don't add to our grand list per se. You have some of those, but we also have, the major apartment complex on 333 Uncle Road, renovations to community theater, other projects that are taking place, including Hartford Healthcare taking some space in 425 Post Road and doing some retrofit there. Again, building business formation, not surprisingly, again, saw a drop-off this past year. Most of the communities that we typically look at, Westport, Milford, West Hartford, saw a similar decline with the exception of Westport. But, again, part of that is paper, people forming LLCs. So it's not, it's not like we have 17,000 business entities, separate business entities on our records. And that's more like 3,000 or so businesses here in town. So some of these are paper LLCs. I spent some time going through vacancy rates, and we obviously have seen an uptick in commercial vacancy, both in the office market and to a larger extent on the retail side. But, all things being equal, we're doing pretty well compared to other parts. Part of it is the fact that our overall submarket is fairly small compared to, Stanford or Norwalk, for example. But you can see, vacancy rate of 11.5 is substantially lower than elsewhere, including Westport, Shelton, Stratford submarkets. Obviously, Stanford Central Business District is still, upwards of 30%. So that does obviously have implications for new office development when you have so much inventory available. A lot of supply, not much demand. You're not going to see a lot of new inventory coming online. Did take a look at, I think this is an interesting slide because, we've seen the last few years an uptick in commercial activity around apartment buildings or mixed-use developments, particularly around transit nodes like the Trademark and Trademark 1 and Trademark 2 projects, 333 Uncle, which I just mentioned. So you can see the trend line over the last 15 years, which has been, early 2008, the first 5 or 6 years was predominantly single-family home construction. In more recent years, it's been a little bit more mixed and more on the line of larger apartment complexes. And this just points it out, like they'll looked at the 10-year spread between 2001, 2010, and 2011 through 2020. For the first 10 years that decade, it was 85% single-family home construction. Now it's more 50% single-family home. Almost, the other half is multifamily, including larger apartment complexes. But still, overall, 85% of the town's housing stock, we have over 22,000 dwelling units in town. 85% of that are single-unit homes per census data. So it hasn't really changed the overall makeup or character of the town, but it is important to note that we've got some more housing options available for folks. I included this before. I think it's always important to note, where our commercially zoned property is located. It's along the two axes, the Post Road, U.S. Route 1 corridor, and then running north-south along Black Rock Turnpike, Tungus Hill Road. Only 4.5% of our land mass is actually zoned for commercial use. With the revow, we're looking at about commercial uses contributing about 11% of the overall grand list. So that's up slightly, which you would expect with revow taking place. You see a little bit of a shift from residential to commercial. Again, what we're seeing out there in the market is a continuing focus on redevelopment opportunities, infill development where it fits. There's still strong demand for residential projects or mixed-use projects. Otherwise, demand is somewhat limited. You're seeing, a lot of with a lot of users, office users in particular, a wait-and-see approach. See how things pan out. Many companies are still working remotely, and what we do see in terms of office demand is typically renewals. People are giving back on square footage, so they're working with smaller footprints. So again, has implications for new office construction or new commercial development here in town. The two sites I think we've mentioned before, one is the XI battery site, which did transfer this past year to a local development group. They have it listed for ground lease, actively looking for an end user or users for the site. There are no environmental land use restrictions on the property. It's about 6 acres. It's zoned industrial at the moment, but we would anticipate that would change with a proposed site plan or redevelopment plan for the location. Great access, both riverine access on the Mill River as well as Post Road frontage. Great location, so a premier development site. So we're continuing to work with the development company to look at potential end uses for it, both residential as well as a mix of residential, retail. Mixed use is I think what we would likely see there, with residential, commercial office potentially, and some retail. And the other large project, obviously, is the crossings at Fairfield Metro, almost 24 acres available for development. We do have an approved mixed-use transit-oriented development plan. The Commission approved that earlier this year, which included 357 residential units to be built in phases with a hotel. I put a question mark there because, I talked to the developer just this week to check in, and, there's many of you, I'm sure, familiar with the impact of the pandemic on the hotel and hospitality industry generally. There's not a lot of new hotel construction going on, and people have kind of pulled back on that. So I'm not sure where that, certainly for the short term, that doesn't seem like it's a viable path forward, but we'll have to see, if things correct in the next year or so. But they're still looking at breaking ground, sometime late spring of this year for the first phase of development. And the other project which was approved and has been going through some, getting their permits in order, working with Water Pollution Control Authority and putting the financing in place, is 185 Thorpe Street, which is the former Fairfield Lumberyard location. It was approved for a 148-unit independent living, 101 bedroom, 48 two-bedroom type development, developed by Cinto in partnership with the Jewish Senior Services. They're looking at a spring of this year construction start. The estimated valuation of that project is pegged at around $53 million. So it's a pretty sizable project, 203,000 square feet. So on a 6.5 acre site. And I mentioned before, this project is nearing completion on 333 Elko Road. It's called the Anchorage, about 128,000 square feet of development, 90-unit luxury residential, predominantly two-bedroom units, although 22 one-bedrooms is part of that. And they're looking at, early this year, they should be finishing up with the certificate of occupancy. I did talk, I would expect the demand to be pretty strong for residential. I have recently spoken to the folks over at Trademark for their second phase, Alto Fairfield. And, you know, they're working, doing lease up right now. And I think within the first month, they were at 50%. So pretty strong, even surpassing their expectations, very strong demand for these residential units, which they don't see being satiated anytime soon. So, and these projects yield pretty significant tax dollars to the town on a net basis. 1401 Kings Highway, which is the Trademark development, is the highest increase in the grand list based on the reval, preliminary reval, with a net increase of $32 million. So, you know, that's a pretty sizable jump in valuation based on that development. And again, we don't see many school kids or demands on public services for these smaller type units, 1 and 2 bedrooms. Most of these don't generate many kids to the school system at all, so they are net positive on the tax basis for the community. And that's pretty much my report. I guess what I would say looking forward for 2021, I'm happy to answer any questions, but, you know, we've got a couple projects pending. In Stratfield, we have the Streetscape Enhancement Project. We're working with the Village Association there in Southport, pedestrian improvement around Southport connectivity on the Post Road. The Post Road Circle Study, looking at ways in which we can enhance safety around the circle, traffic circle there, the Post Road. You know, we've mentioned last month the CEDS process, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Development Survey that we're working on. We have a grant that we're hoping to get started on to replace a section of sewer main over on the eastern side of town to facilitate development in that part of the community. So a lot of infrastructure, and we'll continue to work, obviously, on business retention and working with our partners at the Chamber on small business development as well. So I think we're off to a good start. We just had our first business opening earlier this week. They were anxious to be the first out of the gun. So we were happy to celebrate the opening of a new chocolate shop and workshop up in the Greenfield Hill section. So I'll pause there. I know Beverly's on the line. She probably would like to say a few words about the EGift card program, which we worked with the Chamber to launch earlier this year. They've really done a superb job and far exceeded anyone's expectations in terms of the number of businesses and amount of money that has been invested in that program, which all goes back into local communities. So Bev, I'll pause here and turn it over to you to give just a brief update on that, and then we'll answer any questions folks may have.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark. Good morning, everyone. Yes, the EGift card program has exceeded all expectations. The final numbers are the community has purchased over 700 EGift cards, and the total value of those cards are over $42,000. That was such a phenomenal result and really demonstrates the support from the community to support our local business community. So we are very, very pleased with those numbers. It was really exciting to see that. We will be putting out a press release this week from the Chamber, in partnership with the town, to acknowledge the community for all their support. I mean, that $42,000 was generated over a 2-month period of time. Now, granted, it was the holiday season, but one of the other items that we'll be focusing on in the press release is that this was not just a holiday program. This, in fact, is a year-round program. We're not out of the woods yet with COVID, and we always love to support our local community anyway. So we will remind the community to, as the new year, we're in the new year now, to think about EGift cards for any type of celebratory special occasion like anniversaries and birthdays and Mother's Day and Father's Day and all of those great things. The Chamber will continue to promote this program throughout the year, and we will highlight and suggest, you know, think about EGift card for Valentine's Day or something like that. So we are just absolutely thrilled with the result of this program. And as Mark said, these dollars stay in Fairfield, which is wonderful, and will need to be redeemed amongst 72 of the participating businesses and restaurants. So this is wonderful. We are anticipating that more businesses will be joining the program as we start to report out to the community the statistical information on number of cards, value, and redemption information. So we're really excited about that. And just quickly to remind everyone that we will be holding our Economic Outlook virtual meeting on January 28th from 8 to 9:30 with John Trainer from People's United Bank. He is fantastic. And we'll see what he has to say at the end of the month, all things considered. So just wanted to mention that. And if anyone is not receiving our emails, please let me know. So
I'll send out a link to that Economic Outlook breakfast, as well as a copy of the link to the presentation, so you can all take a look at it at your leisure.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Beverly. It's Elise here. If I could just circle back and just also add, Mark, you mentioned something about the new business, and I wanted to just add to it that I don't know if you mentioned this before, Reef Shack.
Yeah,
that was. I've actually visited, and the owners are pretty cool, and it's nice to have that. It's just a block away from me, but I think it's really nice.
I have a question for Beverly. This is Don. How do you obtain the gift cards for your program?
You would go to the Chamber website, and there is a tab at the top that says gift cards. And click on that tab, and it'll take you to a page with a big red block that says purchase gift cards. You click on that, and then it takes you to the page where you can select your denomination, you can write your personal note, and pay for the gift card there. So it's a 1, 2, 3 step, very easy.
Excellent, Beverly. Thank you very much for all of you have been doing with that. Any other questions for Beverly? And are there any other individuals that are out there that might wish to say a word or two? Okay. All right.
I know I covered a lot of ground, so feel free if you have any questions after taking a look at the presentation. Feel free to give me a call or email.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, if we don't have anything else for today's meeting, I want to again thank everyone for being a part of the meeting today, and especially Mark and Gretchen for organizing and taking notes on all of this. We do have our schedule set up. Mark is going to be sending us reminders as we go forward for our next meeting. And at this time, I would call our meeting to adjourn. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.